do it one thing at a time and you get it done. If you do it more, if you give them a bunch of things, you'll have the recipe. That's it.
How's Jesse? He made his way back?
I don't know. He's too embarrassed to talk to me, I guess.
Yeah, the word is that I haven't spoken to him either, but I think Vanessa has. He's back.
Back. So he's not in Mexico. He's back in Philly or Pennsylvania.
He's back at Mommy's house.
Yeah. You know, he's got maybe some healing he's got to do. You know.
About a lot.
Yeah.
He needs to go find happiness. Whatever that means.
Yeah. It's tough, man. Happiness, you don't find it. You know what I'm saying? It's either you make your own happiness or you ain't fucking happy.
Yep. Just like that. How's everybody doing tonight? I hear our target demographic over there. What's that?
The future of quantum floats.
Hey, Ken.
Hey, Greg. How are you?
Greg's back. Yeah, how are you?
Yeah, good. How's everything going?
Everything's great. Everything's great.
Good. You're back in Central Jersey, or still,
Yeah. Wife's getting knee replacement on Wednesday.
Okay.
So everything's going to plan.
Who's doing that for her?
Toby, Dr. Toby.
Yeah, I think I've heard of Toby.
Summit Medical.
Yeah.
I think I don't know.
Yeah, I think she's in.
Who knows? Just something that's got to happen. So.
Yep. Good to do. And let me say hi to Pam. Pam, how you doing?
I'm good, Ken. How are you?
I'm good. Good to hear your voice. Always.
Good to hear yours too.
Thank you. Also, we're talking about seeing tonight.
What are we talking about?
Seeing.
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 Okay.
Have you read the chapter, Pam?
Not recently.
Okay, but you did in the past.
Yes.
Okay. Well, you guys can. Greg's now got his own copy, I think, and you can get the Soundcast or the SoundCloud audio files.
Hey, Greg, which knee? By chance.
That's going to be the right knee. The right knee. Does it matter? Well, she needs both replaced. But right now, she's going to get the right knee replaced. And it's going to be tough. But we have a hired helper. She's a senior in college. Internship fell through. She's helping us 5 days a week. So we're good.
That's nice.
It's good.
Yeah.
Well, good.
Yeah, it's a good support system is what you need, you know, and just like what I'm doing here, this great support, you know. I guess I could call it a support system, but very cool.
Yeah, thanks for hanging with us. Thanks, everybody, for joining. Episode 16 of the Office of Shaman Summit. And tonight we're talking about the last of the tools in the first part of the book, the tool of seeing. So welcome one, welcome all. I see some new faces here and names. I'll repeat again that you could pick up a copy of the Office of Shaman on Amazon. You can stop by if you're in New Jersey, my Float Center. If you're in Pennsylvania, Vanessa's Float Center. If you want to just listen to audios, we've made the audio chapters available without charge on an app called SoundCloud, so you can get it there and follow along. You could even go back and re-listen to ones that you might have missed. Sound good? And there's a chat box down at the bottom of your screen down there, which you can probably see. If you have a question, feel free to ask it on chat. And I'm going to repeat again that we've set up another channel, let's call it a regular during the day place where you can ask questions, and that's called Slack. Slack is a business application that allows for real-time communication. Really popular, really good tool. And if you don't already have an invite to Slack, you should have gotten one with your welcome email. But if you don't have one, just put something in the chat box here, and we'll make sure that you get one. And what you can do on Slack is you can keep up with discussions. You'll see questions get answered and asked on Slack. Someone last week was asking about the moods of a warrior. And so we had a discussion about that. And discussions are always good, always the way that you're going to test your understanding. And what we're talking about tonight is kind of the epitome, you could say, of understanding. This is the tool of seeing. See how I'll go at this. When I first read The Office of Shaman, I was like, cool, it's great. Some of it just like, yeah, I got that. Programming, I've heard about that. Some of it seemed to have a kind of a magical quality to me too, because I had, they were things that I had never heard about. Really, a tool called seeing, like seeing, I can see. This is going to be great, and I had remembered when I read The Office of Shaman, I had not long before that read a book by Ram Dass called Be Here Now, in which Ram Dass, who most people know, used to be a Harvard professor under the name of Richard Alpert, and he then left Harvard and went to India and met a yogi. And he ended up staying with the yogi. He was so impressed by the yogi's abilities, especially the yogi's abilities at seeing. Ram Dass, in his book, Be Here Now, recounts a story of one night he was in the ashram in India, and he had only been there for a short period of time, but he was really blown away by the yogi. And in his book, he says, I was sitting in bed at night, and I had the covers up to my head, and all I can think about is, what am I going to do with my magical powers? That's what he thought. He thought that what he was getting into was going to make him magical and powerful. And I will admit to you right up front that I had shared some of that. As I know, my friend, if she's on now, Elise, who was the first person I met in this, also had let's just say kind of taking this knowledge and putting a magical quality on it. Right, Elise?
Oh, that's what I thought it was. I didn't know any better to begin with, but I found out later it was much more practical matter. But
well, you were.
I thought it was shamanism.
Yep.
Know,
You did your,
all magic.
Yep. You did your, some work before in what? I don't know. What did they call it? Or
You might call it neo-shamanism. I don't know what you call it, but what it was really didn't relate to anything that we've been talking about. It was
okay. Go ahead. I'm cutting you off. Sorry.
bastardization of what some people had gotten from studying with indigenous tribes, but it didn't translate very well. So it just didn't work out.
Okay. And in terms of even the translation of things sometimes gets, it gets a little cloudy, let's say, or inaccurate or non-functional because of people's magical ways that they think about things instead of practical ways that they think about things. So I know that you had recounted maybe an experience that when you first met John, and by the way, the same thing I'm going to say now has happened here in my float center. You were asked about your power animal.
Oh, that's a funny story. Yeah,
what kind of power animal did you have?
I claim that I had a power animal, that I had a bear that was my best friend that I would go and talk to when I was in dream time, which was, basically I sat down and pretended I was meditating and I imagined this bear that was my friend. And the ever practical John said, okay, show me this bear if it's real. Because I was talking about it just like it was real. And of course I couldn't produce any bear because it was all from my fantasy of this animal, like a child would have a make-believe friend, is what it was like, and I couldn't produce it. And that actually was a really good dose of reality for me. It was very helpful.
Yeah. I not too long ago was I'm in Central Jersey, and I got invited to a retreat. Some people that I knew from a law firm that I'd worked with, and some people that I didn't know. And when I got there, it turns out that I was the only one without a power animal. So I was like, I didn't know I was supposed to bring my power animal to this thing.
Good for you.
And so here's the thing. What we're talking about here in terms of seeing is an application of knowledge. It really comes down to that. And there are lots of places where we kid ourselves, or we don't do the work to acquire the knowledge and apply it, especially apply it to ourselves. And if we don't do that, things sometimes, our perceptions are no better than we allow them to be. So at this particular retreat, I met a guy, and the guy told me, like everybody else, that he had a power animal, and I asked him where the power animal was, and I was met with like a really surprised look, like how dare I ask him that question? But I asked him to like what he does, and he's like, well, I used to work in Pennsylvania, and I was married, and then I got involved in this shamanism thing, and my guru told me that that I had to move, or he convinced himself, this guy I met, that he had to move what he called off the grid. So he picked up, left his family in Allentown or wherever he was in Pennsylvania, and he moved off the grid into the woods. And as I talked to the guy over the course of the evening, I could see that what was really going on was a thought, was a program, something that he had written when he was young, where he didn't want to deal with people. Okay? And so because that was going on for him, I was able to see that it made sense that he was living what he said off the grid, except he claimed he was living off the grid because he was supposed to, but he couldn't see, or he didn't want to see, that the fact that he wasn't dealing with a very real relationship issue. And that was the relationship issue was the reason why he left his wife and his kid in Allentown and decided on his own to move what he called off the grid and do really nothing every day. Seeing. This is what we're talking about here. We've laid out in we're on episode 16, and the 15 episodes before this, the previous tools. And seeing is kind of a culmination of these tools. It's a practical way to make use of these tools. Did you ever say to yourself, or hear someone else say, as they watch someone else do something, maybe they make a comment like this, I know how that's going to play out. And if you pay attention to things, you can see how they're going to play out. Like you can see, where people's programs play out. So seeing is really, if you look at all the tools that we've had before this, is really the kind of the culmination. If you're going to be able to see things, you're going to have to deal with your own programming. If you're not dealing with your own programming, you might think that, you're supposed to live off the grid when you're not dealing with a relationship issue. If you're not dealing with relationship issues, you're not in harmony. And let's go through all the tools. If you're not communicating with people in your life, you're not seeing what it is that you can do with them, on and on. Okay? All of these tools are used in seeing. So I'll tell you a story about how I use this. And one, it's just a really practical thing. And I think after this, maybe other people will come on and tell you how they use it. I've been practicing law for 30 years. And when you practice law, you go to law school and they tell you, you know, they teach you a little bit, but not much. And then you get out of law school and you don't really know much. You got to figure the whole thing out. So I got out of law school and I decided that I wanted to work in a corporate environment, which means that I represent businesses. And I learned a way to do things within the structure of the law. But I never really paid attention to the reasons why my clients did things or got themselves in the same trouble over and over again. Or the reason why I kept running into the same walls over and over again. Eventually, as I've gotten into this work, picking up these tools and using them, I'm able to deal with my own programming. I'm able to look at someone else's way of viewing the world. I can communicate better than I did. And I'm honest with myself when, you know, about what's going on. And so all of these tools come together now in my law practice for me to be a better lawyer. So how does that work out? Well, now if a client comes in and they're talking to me about what they want to do, I can see where it's going. I can literally plot out where this client is going to go. Is it magic? No way. It's not. It's just an application of knowledge. And I use it because I've got clients that want to do all sorts of stupid things, just like I wanted to do all sorts of stupid things. But they need a hand to not do stupid things, just like I needed a hand not to do stupid things. And, well, seeing's real cool and all, but when you get right down to it, what are you going to do with this thing that you see? Like, go back to that phrase that I said about, we all know people who are like, I know how this is going to play out. Okay. What are you going to do with that? Really? Because that's really where the rubber meets the road, as they say. You've got this knowledge and these tools that you've built up. And so you've got the ability to see things that you didn't see before. Now what? Tell me, what do you do with it? You know, do you sit under your covers and, you know, and marvel at all of your magical powers? Or do you actually go out and give your clients a hand? Like I use these tools in my law practice and in my float center here because, well, when you start to pay attention to this shit, you can see where things run out for people way better than they can. Who else? Let's see who.
Hey Ken, it's Paul. I got a good question for you. You were going to call me anyway, weren't you?
That's yeah. You saw that one.
Did I see that playing out? I was just going to say, in your own experience, what happens to somebody when you try and give them a hand? Or what are some of the things that happens to people when you try and give them a hand? Because I've tried giving people a hand when in certain circumstances where I might be able to see what I think's happening for them, right? And that they're going to end up down this road and it's not going to work the way that they think it's going to work.
Yeah.
But they don't believe it, right?
Yep.
'Cause they don't see it. And then when it happens, one of two things seems to happen for me for these people that I'm talking with, and either they look at me and they say, "Whoa, that was magic.
Mm-hmm.
How did you do that?" I'm like, "Okay, you know, to your point, not magic, just applying some tools you've never heard of in ways you can't imagine." Or they flat out deny it to the point where you can't even talk to them about it.
Yeah.
And I mean, both of those situations are a challenge to work through. Because one, they're denying what's going on and what's happening for them, so there's no chance of making an adjustment. And the other one is couching it in fantasy like magic. So how do you pierce that? How do you get through that?
May I answer that?
For me, yes, only if you allow me to answer it after you.
Hey, John.
Hey, Paul, how you doing, dude?
All right, man. I thought that might get you on out of the mute zone.
Well, maybe.
Word of mouth. Hey, John, how are you?
Go ahead, John. What do you got?
Okay, look, it really depends on where you're talking to the people. If you're talking consciousness to consciousness, you can hang that puppy up. you're not going to talk to anybody. Nobody's going to change anything ever. Not today, not tomorrow, not next week, never. They're being run by that program. That's why they can only speak in consciousness. If you can slow them down till they can begin to see glimpses of the self-meta programmer, then you can begin to communicate with the self-meta programmer, and you can educate the self-meta programmer to, well, shall we say, respond for itself. That's, that one's just a tough one. And the only way that you're going to do that is that you're going to say something that's true or something that's real. They're going to get pissed off, just as sure as God made little green apples. Because like Korzybski said, if you ask somebody like, okay, define this for me 5 times, by the 5th time, you can pretty much you can just bet on it that they're going to be angry, because that's threatening. It really is. It's really aggressive to ask somebody to explain something 5 times. I know I'm that aggressive. I'll go 7, 8, 10, 12, 14, 20 times if I have to, but I'm going to get a response, a real live, honest to God response, something that I can mark. Because when I mark that, then I say, okay, then what is that thing that you're using there to respond? Communicate with me now. Tell me what that thing is. Because this is about communication of information. And so if you're going to see where that communication is going to go, then you have to adjust that communication. You have to hone that communication. You have to shine that communication so that the communication is precise and as exact as it can possibly be, to make it into that particular type of well, shall we say, energy level or resistance to energy levels that person exhibits. Now, how is that for a concise explanation of something that nobody followed?
Well, maybe I can add just a little, because my 2 examples are examples of me not doing that thing that you're talking about. In other words, I did not communicate in a meaningful way with the self-meta programmer. So it was all logic and consciousness talking with me, and they either ran or thought it was all sparkly and magical.
Yeah, because it doesn't really do either. It doesn't really communicate information.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
See what the thing. Here's the thing. What you're really talking to people about is programming, right? That's where you have to start. I mean, that's why it's B1. Kind of numbered.
Yeah.
But you have to kind of start with that programming concept, right? And so when you start there, what happens for people is that they say, okay, well, I don't have that program, because they can't see it. You can't see what you're looking with, right? So
Yep.
people are going to deny that they have a program that you're sitting right there looking at. You're watching them do it over and over and over.
Repeatedly.
Repeatedly. And they're
Yeah.
saying, no, I'm not doing that. I think I've told this story a lot of times. The first time I ever really understood what that meant for me is I had this kid in LA that was he was a good looking kid, and all the ladies, when we did private homes, the big houses in LA, they all loved this kid to come work on their property because he took his shirt off, and well, he was exciting for the ladies, I think. but he had some bad habits, and one of them was that whenever he got done with a tool, he just laid it down wherever he was. He just dropped it. And so that meant that he would leave hoses and rakes and brooms and lawnmowers and stuff all over the walkways, because that's where you get done with it, right? And so you could find him on the property by following where all the tools were. And I would tell him, I said, well, Miguel, you need to clean that up. He'd say, I don't ever have a problem with it. He said, I always clean it up. So I said, okay, how am I going to tell this kid this thing? So what I did is I went out and I got a camera. And I came back and I took pictures of all the places that he left his tools, and I circled them with a red magic marker, and I made copies of the film of the pictures. I made one for every site that I had. I think I made like 30 sets of pictures. I took them and I posted them up on every one of those other sites. Next time he showed up at a meeting, Well, it was the last time he left a tool on the ground. I can tell you that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because it was a way of communicating to him. See, he couldn't see that he was doing it. I mean, I wasn't mad at the kid. I just didn't want him to do it.
And that was an overwhelming tsunami of proof that he couldn't wiggle away from.
Well, that's the whole idea. That why go at something half-assed?
Yeah.
If it's worth saying, that's worth saying. If it's worth doing, it's worth doing right. Is what I was taught, and I think that's a good thing. You know, why do something half-assed? It costs you more money, and it takes twice as long, or maybe even 3 times as long, because you got to go back and redo it. So why not do it right the first time, especially with the communication? You know, communications require that you actually communicate to where the problem lives. That means that if you have to see where that lives, you actually have to look and say, okay, is that a program that he's running there? Or is that a meta program? Or is that a freaking belief? What is that that's making this guy do this thing? And you sometimes have to sit and study on it and ask him questions and set him up to do it one, 2, 3, 4, 5 times until you say, okay, here, I know how predictable he is. Let me take this and go 1, 2, 3, ding, and watch him run his thing. And when he gets done, just be standing there and say, what was that you just done there, Pumpkin? Did you run around what was that? I didn't understand what you was doing. Can you explain me to it? Now, Pumpkin will be pissed off, but he'll have to think about it then, because what you're doing is you're talking to the self-meta programmer.
Yeah, yeah. I was going to ask, how are you assessing the depth of
Well, what is the error doing? Is it something that just irks you, like they squeeze the toothpaste in the middle rather than at the end? That's a freaking program. Leave it alone. It doesn't make any difference.
Not worth it.
Okay?
Not worth it.
Okay. When they sit down to eat, do they go, food? Every freaking time? Man, come on. That's an emotional problem you got there with food. What is with about food? Cut it out. Hey, let's figure out here what's going on here with this thing. Where'd that come from? What are you trying to say here? Explain me to it. If they say something like, I just will not ever trust a man, you got to kind of stop and say, whoa, where did that bile come from there, sweetie? You know, whoever that is, I'm not it. You want to tell me about who that was? I'll listen. Sounds like you need to have a friend in this regard. And if that guy that did that was, you know, I'll listen. You go ahead and tell me about it. That's getting down to where the belief is then, see, because that you can hear that the entire entity was involved with saying that thing. It rang all the way back down to their toes.
Yeah.
And somebody's talking about the freaking weather. It doesn't make any difference. They don't care.
Mm-hmm.
You know, or if they talk about how did you be careful. You're not driving the way I want you to. Who cares? You have an emotional reaction to, oh, this is so awful. I hate that. Get off your drama. Get over it, like the song says, right? Just get over it. Hey, cut it out. And nobody cares. And even if they do care, that nobody cares. It's not going to make any difference that you have this drama. Now, if there's a problem with what you believe is real and you can't see what's real and what's not real, then you need a helping hand. Now, if you can't accept that helping hand, if that hurts so much for anybody to get that close to it, then you really need a helping hand. And
right.
If whoever's going to touch it, then it had better be damn well gentle. And gentle sometimes doesn't mean that you're going to say, okay, Pumpkin, I don't want to ever hurt your feelings. It means that you wait patiently.
Yeah.
To where you can explain this thing to that person, so you can see that all of the elements are in place for them to be able to see it.
Yeah.
And some communications are sons of a bitches and take some time to do.
Yeah, I was just thinking about how the duration of an event.
Yeah. communication events are not something that we do on the phone. That we might, but if we do, we're going to do it a lot of times. Communication events take place over weeks and months and days and years even.
Yes, we've done lots of those. We have a lot of examples. Hey, Terry.
I'm sorry, Ken. You
No,
go ahead. I'm
Yeah.
running my mouth again.
That's all right. No, very much appreciated. Terry, can you put up the upside down pyramid? Because it's got another way to see what John was just talking about in terms of where's this thing that the person you're giving a hand to is, where's it come from? Where's the depth of this? That at the bottom triangle down there, at the self meta program level, is the things that people believe are real. You know, those are the ones where what they're doing is very much at the core. I can't stand anybody.
Well, Ken, I think in John's example, that was I can't trust a man.
Yep.
Right. The whole body was behind that statement.
Yep.
And it defines everything else that they work with, all the way up to the logical subroutines, right?
Yep. All the way up this pyramid, from the bottom, from the belief I can't stand the man or whatever, to the emotional set in the meta programs or the meta programs above that, to the programs, the feelings, and the very logic that they use to defend their position. And what John was doing is saying, well, hey, they don't like carrots, so they put their fork on the left side, and because they learned to put their fork on the left side, or they make a smacking lip sound when they about to take a sip of, really, is that, why don't you just forget about that one? You do it too. But that's a thing, I mean, I hear what John telling the story like he did about the patience of the communication to make sure that the receiving person can actually hear it. And I think about things like, I had a conversation today with one of my float clients here, and he was recounting to me something that's going on in his business, and he wasn't happy with one of his colleagues that was not doing the work that the colleague needed to do, and finally he said something, and it did a world of good for him, because he got it off his chest and he communicated, and that's great. I know too that like the tool of brutal honesty or being honest is an important consideration in communication, right? Because you can be really enamored with what you know. I know that I have been. But if I'm enamored with what I know, and then I'm lecturing people or being holier than them, and it falls on deaf ears. So I have to always check too where I'm at with the communication, right? What am I doing? Because if I'm honest with myself about what I'm doing, only then can I really see in and be empathetic with what's going on with them, so that I know what to say and how to say it and when to say it.
And in the way that John was talking, you have to know where to meet them, right? Like, where are they?
Yeah.
That you can talk to them. In my examples, I didn't spend the time to find out where they were. So I didn't actually communicate with them. I didn't make a difference for them. But if
Another
you
part
can-
of another part of that, Paul, is to have the balls to meet them there.
Well, John, it's funny. I thought about it like that when I first started to try to do it. But then I realized that it wasn't balls. It was kind of knowing that what I was saying was accurate.
Yeah, it's actually but it is actually well, for a lot of people, I think it is actually balls. Because
Courage.
they, well, okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, courage.
There you
Yeah,
go.
that's what it is. It's courage. But the reason why it is that for them, I think, is because they're saying, well, I've got this thing, but what if people don't agree with me? What if people don't like what I'm saying? What if I piss somebody off? What if I do this? What if I do that?
Yeah.
And those are real concerns for people. I mean, they really are concerns.
Oh, I remember. I know they were for me too.
Yeah.
Yeah. They are. Yeah. Yeah. Me too.
I think everyone has to approach that challenge very personally.
Well, you see, here's the thing. It's like, it's part of it's what you're saying, Paul, that you're saying it has to be a based on knowledge. And that's true. You have to understand and you have to know what you're doing. But then that's the case for anything at all. I don't care
Right.
what it is that you're doing. I mean, if you're going to open a restaurant, you better damn well be a good cook, right? I mean, it just
Right.
makes sense to me. I mean, I could be wrong about this because I know that there are a lot of people who have opened restaurants that God knows they shouldn't have. Okay, and there are a lot of people in businesses that they shouldn't have been in. Okay, they studied at school for things, and really and truly, I mean, come on, they weren't going to do anything with that course in French, medieval French poetry. I mean, that come on, who's going to use that? And so I don't really have a lot of patience with that kind of silliness. But I understand that people have to sometimes be brought up short and stopped and said, okay, look, I know you can't see this, but stop for a second, look around you. Where are you and what are you doing? Are you sure that this is what you want? Now, a lot of times people are so embarrassed at that point that they even if they don't want it, they'll tell you that they do, or they'll act like they do because they're really embarrassed. Because they can't believe that they were that ignorant or that careless or that unaware. But it's not a bad thing. It's like we all are until we know what to look for.
Right. We're all like that until we're not like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, everybody has to go through that. I think it's a rite of passage, really, to tell you the truth. And I don't think it's anything magical. I think it's just growing up. That's it.
Yep. Growing up. Actually listening to paying attention to what someone else is saying. Actually doing that. Crazy, right? It's just nuts.
Well, it is kind of, yeah. But that's what people do, right? I mean, you find that place. Yeah. The other thing is that, if you're okay with yourself, then you got the time and the patience and everything else to tell other people that they can be okay with themselves, that you don't mind.
Yeah, John, I think that's a big part of what worked for me was settling into being okay with myself, with all of my imperfections, and being able to talk to other people from within those imperfections.
Well, I'm a big fan of that one, as you may well imagine.
Indeed.
Well, thank you very much.
I was wondering if you were going to get that one. But I agree a lot with that. I saw you do that, and it worked for me as well. So
Yeah, I mean, you are who you are, right? And why would you want to hide that? That's your strength.
Oh, for a while, a large part of my life, I did try to hide a lot of things, as
Yeah.
a lot of folks here know.
Yeah. Hey, but you know what? A lot of people do that. You know, gay
Yeah.
people do that. Straight
Yeah.
people do that. Women do that. Men do that. Kids do that. We all do it, right? Okay. We all go through these phases where we do those kinds of silly things. Well, it doesn't mean that we're bad or anything. It's just that we go through and we do those things. Big deal. No big deal. It's just how we are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was, frankly, it was once I started to learn these tools, that was kind of in my way.
Yeah. Yeah. I see what you mean by that too, I guess. But yeah, it's, you know, Paul, we all go through things. We learn and we get bigger, we get older, we figure things out and we put it to work, right?
That's right.
And so that's what, for me, that's what these tools are here. The things that we've talked about up until this point, including seeing. It's like, you know, it's a way, it's a practical way of taking anybody's thought apart, anybody's action apart, and slowing it down, looking at it for what it is, without any judgment, without saying this is right or that's wrong. No. It is what it is. What it is. Who cares? I mean, why should I care what somebody does? Okay, it doesn't make any difference to me. It's not going to change my life.
Right.
It changes theirs maybe, but not mine. So okay, you're doing what you're doing. Okay, that's cool as long as you're wearing your mask at least. But if you're doing those kinds of things that say that you're socially responsible, then why would I want to say anything about your behavior, about what you like? I mean, that would be like saying, "Oh my God, that person eats hamburger," or to say that, "Oh, no, I'm a sausage eater. I don't eat hamburger. I eat sausage."
Yeah.
Somebody else come along and say, "No, you lazy, terrible people. I eat chicken burger." And somebody else come along and say, "Well, fuck you both. I have ceviche."
They got us on ceviche.
See, and what all it is ground up fish. You know, with same thing. So
Yeah.
does it make any difference really? No, it's all food, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's all ground up meat, so we don't have to chew it. That we can savor the flavor of the meat. And so, you know, other than that, though, it's still ground up meat, all of them. Oh, okay.
Yep.
Should I be religious about that?
Yeah. Korzybski wrote about it and said something to the effect of like, when we do that to ourselves and have our thoughts identify as if we like are something because we eat a certain food, behave a certain way, we make ourselves crazy because if there are other people who aren't that way, so we've put ourselves as someone else in a box. And once you start putting people in boxes, well, we know where that plays out.
Yeah, but that's the whole point, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, what we really want to do is not about boxes at all. But we don't want to put ourselves in a box.
Yeah.
Because a box is a limit.
Yep.
Now, here's the crazy thing about that. In order to learn anything, you got to start within a certain amount of limits, right?
Could you say more?
Okay, let's take my friend George and the kitchen. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. The first month or so that he's around here, he's looking for recipes. He's trying to figure out how to be a good boy. What's the dance he needs to do. And so finally it dawned on him, because of some other things that also clicked in his life. He said, "Oh, okay, I see. I need to understand that the kitchen is a part of living life." And so so he began to think about what he was doing differently. So for instance, over the weekend here, we made some crepes, and they came out like like crepes are supposed to come out. I mean, they were soft, and you could hold them up. You couldn't quite see through them, but boy, they were nice, and they were yummy. And so he understood. Then he said, okay, I could use these in a lot of different ways. He said I could use it as a sweet dessert. I could use it for breakfast. I could roll an egg in it. I could even put a white sauce on that. But I don't know how to make a good white sauce, so I have to practice that. So he's beginning to think about the whole meal that he could put together and how long it would take to do it. And he's even thinking about, okay, if I did those browned potatoes rather than hash browns, it takes me 40 minutes to do it. But if I started them to begin with, by the time I got everything else ready, I'd have hot potatoes ready to go. And I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, Jesus, who is this masked kid? Where did he come from? It's not a George that I know. I think this is a Jorge.
Okay. Jorge.
Yeah, which is a little different than George, I think.
It's good. It's new and improved.
Yeah.
George. Jorge.
No, it's just Jorge. It's not a new and improved George. You couldn't improve on George. That was it.
So John, he really changed why he was in the kitchen.
Yes, he did. He actually saw what he was doing to address the issue of the evening, Paul.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
He actually could see how it is that doing that thing is part and parcel, a very necessary part and parcel of what we're doing. Like, for instance, right now, while we're on this call, we had floaters. And I'm sure that George has something that he made especially for them. Maybe it was something simple, but he made something so when they came out of the floating, they could have tea and a crumpet of some variety or the other, which is part of what we're doing, right? Part of our hospitality gig here. The same with having plants to give to people, right? When people come, we say, here, take this, put it in your office. And,
Yeah.
Here, because it doesn't cost me anything to grow plants. I mean, Christ, we're in plant paradise right here. So all I have to do is look at plants that you want to grow.
He didn't see his role in that at all.
No, he didn't. No,
But you're saying now he does.
He's beginning to. That was the thing. When Jesse saw his role in it, he ran. When Jesse realized that what he could do is that he could actually train 5,000 people here how to do what he's doing, he ran away from it. He said, "Oh no, I'm not big enough."
That's what I walked in on the beginning of the call.
Yeah.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, he just it's well, you know how
Oh, he
these
saw it
things are.
too.
Yeah, he did. Of course he did.
Yeah, just to tie it back in.
Yeah, of course. We all see, Paul, right?
Yeah.
All of us do. We deny it. I mean, we lie about it and we deny it. Really, we do. But that doesn't mean we don't see it.
Yeah.
Cool. What else do you guys got?
Well, we're stealing the show, Ken. Come on, take it back.
Oh, you guys are doing great.
Vanessa, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm seeing that Paul is seeing even deeper than what he already saw.
Ooh. Okay.
No, I'm enjoying that and what John's talking about. I mean, we use these tools every day, but like I was comparing to, simple programming, like even as a parent, like we see, like, Luke right now thinks he can walk and he's 7 months old and he thinks he can walk, but I see that he's going to fall because he just can't, So I think that if we were just that honest with the people that we interact, like it would be a better communication, because with our kids and our family, we're that honest, seeing everybody, what they see, like John says, we all see it, that person is just like that. My brother just does these things. The word of seeing.
Okay, I think what you're saying is apply that. You're in a float center. Apply that to your clients. Apply it to the people in your life. Apply it to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you saw what was going on with Rachel, right? You didn't
Oh,
call
yeah.
that, but you.
Yeah, I was able to see with my brother and Rachel, my stepsister, what was what the
Your
programming did you do.
sister-in-law.
Right, sister-in-law. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I
Keep it straight, John.
I got to watch these family connections. I'm in Mexico.
Yeah, the programming was evident in where it plays out and the places where it's hurtful and to the family, to the kids. Now, as John said, the communication, that's been a long-term thing with me and my relationship with my brother and sister-in-law. At times, it's been about not agreeing that she doesn't have value, which is to say, to insist that she does.
Yep. That's the only way you can say that.
Yep.
And then as soon as you show her her value, she'll shit on it, right?
Oh yeah.
Yep. Yep. So what are you going to do with that? The only way that you can address it is to be as intense as she is about it, Ken.
Yep. I got that, John. Yep. Yeah. Absolutely. Otherwise, it's not a communication, and it's not. It's not even fair to your family and friends.
Nope.
Yeah. So I'm going to be washed over by her insisting more intensely than I am that she's not okay. That doesn't. That equation doesn't play out well for her health, her families.
Right. But that's what we do with people all the time. We agree with them that, oh, okay, you're not okay. Poor you.
Yep.
We do that with kids. We do that with adults. We do that with old people. Come on. You know, it can't be that way all the time. And every now and then, everybody has a bad day. Yep, that's true. Okay, I got it. But it's not like that all the time. Come on, give it a rest. Get over it.
Yep. But you don't know my life.
You're right. I don't.
Yeah.
And you know what? Neither do you, apparently, because you made it.
Yep. Yeah.
Everybody. Everybody talks about that when they say, "Okay, no, you don't know how bad things are," and so forth. I quit thinking that way forever and a day, and Vanessa knows exactly when this took place. We had a neighbor who was a little kid, and he was dying of leukemia. And he knew he was dying of leukemia. He knew. Mom and Dad talked about it. They took him places. They did things for him because they wanted him to have the experiences, because it was necessary that he have those experiences before he passed away. And, that kid didn't whine about it. He was sitting in church with his mom, and he looked out the window and he said, out there underneath that tree in the cemetery, that's a nice place. I'd like to be buried there.
Wow, that statement is just washing over me.
What can you complain about? What's the context of your complaints and the context of that? Yep. Yep. Okay. Well, that one was on point. Anybody else have anything to add or questions before we wrap it up tonight? You guys good?
We have a couple more nights, Ken. What's the schedule?
Well, we're gonna do. Well, we'll talk more tomorrow about seeing. Okay, I want to continue to start to put these pieces together for you because we're going to move on Wednesday, I think. Is that right, Vanessa, or is it Thursday? I forget. Into part 2 of the book, which we did the tools. We're going to do the functions. The functions, how the tools that we've done release energy from spirit, from soul, from whatever you want to call it. But it's it's an energetic thing. And so I think what we'll do, we have this up on the screen now, this playing field. We'll talk maybe a little bit about it tomorrow. We'll give you a little bit more to sort of hang your hat on to see what's coming in the weeks ahead as we move from the tools we've been talking about to the functions, what you're looking at here on the screen here, depicted in this thing we call the playing field. Because what we've talked about tonight, this thing about seeing, is an application of knowledge. It's an application of the tools that we've talked about. And so then the question becomes, well, okay, you can see, what are you going to do? What do you do with that? You know, George is figuring out what he does with that. Jesse was down in Mexico also visiting John, and he started to see that, what he does with that. Well, that's where seeing's at, you know? Okay?
Okay.
So
Sounds like a plan.
Sounds like a plan. So if no other questions, I'll stay on for a minute, 2, 3. Otherwise, I'll see y'all tomorrow. Yeah.
Well, I'm just curious about the story that John just told about the boy who was way more aware than his parents. And I'm just curious of, you know, how his parents reacted to that, to the boy just understanding.
Pam,
I think the dad is still wrestling with it.
yeah,
I'm
his
sorry, I
mom,
missed that. What?
I said
his
I
mom,
think his dad
did
still
well. His mother did pretty well. The dad is he still hasn't got out of it.
Right, right.
The mom also, you know, she had triplets after that,
Whoa. Wow.
and they're all pretty smart, I understand, right?
Oh yeah, one is in Harvard, the other one is like top of UCLA or something like that. I think isn't Mrs. Watt like isn't she like a librarian or something? But I think that's why like she wanted to have more kids because she lost one, so she needed that the boy. She lost her boy.
Mm-hmm. Well, it sounds like the boy was just totally aware, totally could see what they couldn't see. Like
you know, the
they
Buddhists
wanted,
say, the Buddhists or
yeah.
the Hindus, I'm not sure which one. I think it's the Buddhists say that, you know, in lives like that, it's just that somebody came back to finish what they started.
Right. That makes sense to me. And so the parents were trying to give him life experience, but he had his experience. He was.
Yeah, but he had to do that too. He did.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? He did a good job of it.
Sounds amazing.
Yep.
Tomorrow, 8 p.m.
Okay.
We'll see you all. Thanks for
See y'all.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night. Night, everyone.
Night.